Hello, welcome back to IM Movies. Today we're covering the 2023 Spanish-American sci-fi thriller known as Awareness. The movie revolves around a teenage illusionist and his father running local scams on unsuspecting people. However, their operation soon goes awry as they are discovered by two rival gangs and become their target. So guys, before we get started, give us a thumbs up, drop a comment, and hit the subscribe button to stay updated. With that said, let's get started. One day they go to a liquor store to steal as usual. Ian stays outside while his father goes in to steal some bottles of wine. As his father heads to the cashier's desk, Ian uses his power to make the drinks invisible. After paying for a 90-cent mint, he leaves the store and instructs Ian to hold up the illusion as he steps out to get the car. However, a young lady calls Ian a freak, and he gets distracted. The cashier, realizing she's been robbed, rushes out with a hammer to stop Vicente. She tries to get into the car, but Ian stops her and asks her to drop the hammer. The cashier confronts Ian, and he points a gun at her and shoots her in the belly. Ian and his father immediately drive off, leaving the woman on the floor. The police arrive and the woman reports that she's been shot, but it appears it was just an illusion. Then reports that she's been robbed, and the police begin to chase them. While on the run, Ian makes their car look like a white one to the police. Then, Ian complains about how his father won't allow them to pull off a bigger heist that will change their lives. His father explains to him that they can't afford to expose themselves because they'll take Ian to a lab and carry out experiments on him without his permission. After a while, Ian creates an illusion of a hailstorm, and the police car crashes into a gas station. The policeman gets out of the car and soon realizes it is just an illusion. However, an organization known as the Agency watches all these unfold. The Agency are the people who created the first generation of illusionists, which they call perceivers. The next day, in a wrecked ship on the outskirts of the city, Ian wakes up from a nightmare where he sees his mother scream just after singing for him as a baby. As soon as he gets up, he realizes that it's his birthday. His father sings for him and presents him with a cake. Ian decides to go to an arcade, but his father begs him not to go and later gifts him a book. This annoys Ian, but he later sneaks out. Later, the policeman who had chased Ian and Vicente narrates his experience to a bartender. Meanwhile, a man known as the Perceiver listens to him. The Perceiver realizes what he's talking about and makes him pass out using mind control. Later that night, agents from the Agency come looking for Ian, but they only find Vicente on the ship. Soon, they receive a call that they found Ian in an arcade. In the arcade, the Perceiver looks around for Ian and soon spots some agents of the Agency there. The Perceiver begins to take out the agents one after the other and uses his power to create illusions of himself, making the agents shoot into blank air. Ian hides as he watches all these events happen. Later, the Perceiver tries to use his power on Ian, but the agents put a shield on his head to stop him. Then a lady and a guy from the Agency walk up to Ian and ask him to follow them to safety. Meanwhile, the Perceiver continues to fight the agents as they continue to arrive in numbers. At the same time, the agents take Ian to meet with a doctor of the Agency named Adriana. Adriana tells Ian that there are more people like him and asks him to come with them to safety. However, the Perceiver succeeds in fighting the agents and frees himself. Back outside, Ian steps into the truck and sees his father passed out. Soon, Adriana puts a shield on Ian's head to block his power and also takes a sample of his blood for testing. Later, the Perceiver gets on the road and creates an accident scene. The driver of the Agency truck sees this and becomes scared, but Adriana tells him to ignore it and continue to drive as she knows it's just an illusion. Later, they get Ian to a lab and begin to lecture him about a rival organization known as the Awareness that the Agency is fighting against. The Awareness is a group of illusionists. Ian asks Adriana about the man he saw in the arcade, and she tells him that he's the last Perceiver left from the Awareness and that he's seeking to recruit Ian to his side. Ian asks what Adriana wants from him. Adriana tells him that she needs him to work with her, and that she also needs a formula from his blood that can create more Perceivers, and even destroy one. After that, Ian asks to see his father, but Adriana asks him to create an illusion of her standing at a beach with a Chihuahua dog first, to see his father. Ian creates it for her, but instead of a Chihuahua, he creates a fly that swirls around her. Adriana tells him to let the fly continue to be in a loop in her reality, such that after he stops the illusion, she'll still be able to see the fly in a continuous loop. However, Ian stops the illusions and tells her that her free trial is over, demanding to see his father. Adriana takes Ian to see Vicente. However, Ian soon realizes that Vicente and Adriana know each other from the past. With this, Adriana asks Ian to go into Vicente's memory to see more for himself. Vicente warns Ian not to believe her, but Ian, out of curiosity, goes into Vicente's memory. This is when he realizes that Vicente is not his real father. Vicente had taken Ian from the Agency as a child and ran away. This revelation shocks Ian, and he looks disappointed. Later, Adriana tells her boss about Ian's outstanding abilities. However, her boss is only interested in the formula, but Adriana tells him that there is no trace of the formula in Ian's body. She suggests that Ian must have inherited his abilities from his parents, and her boss refuses to believe it, since all the perceivers were once sterilized not to reproduce. Adriana states that Ian is possibly the first naturally born perceiver, but her boss tells her that if Ian does not carry the formula, then he's useless to them and should be killed. Adriana protests this idea, stating that Ian could be their only defense against the mule, which is a very powerful perceiver. Adriana also believes that Ian would soon be able to manifest the third power, which is the ability to bend people's minds to their will. The next day, one of the agency's doctors arrives and the security men check him in. Later, a lady named Esther walks into where Ian has been kept and helps him to escape. During the escape, security men begin to pour out from all corners, and she fights them off as Ian watches in shock. They get into the elevator to escape, and Ian asks that she help him save Vicente. Later, Adriana realizes that Ian and Vicente have escaped, and she calls for a total lockdown, but it is too late. They already got into a car, and were already on their way out of the area. Having received the order, security agents begin to shoot at them. At this point, the doctor walks into the control room. One of them tries to stop him, but he immediately kills them all. Surprisingly, it is the perceiver that had disguised as the doctor. Soon, the perceiver spots Ian's getaway car from the CCTV. As Ian drives towards the main entrance, a security man announces a kill order, but Ian uses his power to divert their attention as he drives past the gate. However, the car's tires soon get punctured, which later leads to a crash. Soon, the perceiver tries to track them down and arrives at the crash site. However, he can't see the car as Ian uses his power to cover it all up. The next day, Ian begins to express how disappointed he is knowing that Vicente is not his father. Esther encourages him to use his uniqueness as his strength, and they try to kiss, but Ian fidgets. They get back inside and find Vicente drunk. Ian sees this as an opportunity to look into Vicente's memory for his answers. While doing this, Ian realizes that Adriana and Vicente used to work together, and also sees Adriana talking to a strange person with missing fingers about a person named Kaminsky wanting the formula. Later that day, Ian walks into a bank and uses his power to rob them of 5,000 euros. After getting the money, he walks out, but the cashier soon realizes that she's been scammed. She informs the security guards, but Ian escapes with Esther. They finally get home and celebrate their successful heist. Soon, Esther decides to take her bath, but Ian realizes that the perceiver has found them. He turns off her shower and asks her to stay still. He uses his power to project the room as an empty room for the perceiver. However, the perceiver unveils a mirror and sees the real image of the room. Ian realizes that his cover is blown and he attacks the perceiver. They soon begin to fight, and the perceiver tries to convince Ian to be calm, stating that he's on his side, but Ian doesn't care. The perceiver spots Esther in the bath, but he ignores her and looks into Ian's memory. While doing this, he sees the bank robbery and the research Ian had done, including his plans to locate Kaminsky on the outskirts of Warsaw. After that, Ian passes out and the perceiver leaves. Later, Vicente finds Ian lying on the floor and scolds him about the robbery. Ian tells him that they need the money to get to Warsaw. At this point, Vicente realizes that Ian has gone into his head again. Soon they begin to argue, but Vicente keeps telling Ian to trust him and that all he ever did was done to protect him. Meanwhile, as Adriana continues to track them, she soon finds out that they've bought a train ticket to Warsaw. However, her boss tells her that Ian is trying to disappear, but she tells him that Ian is only trying to get answers. Adriana assures her boss that she already has eyes on the ground. Meanwhile, the perceiver begins to kill the agency's agents. As Ian and Esther arrive at the place, they get into the building but find it empty. Ian explains that the room looks like the room in his dreams, but smaller. Ian soon realizes that there's more to the size of the room as he punches through a wall and discovers a hidden portion. He sees documents and pictures of his mother as Ursula Kaminsky. Meanwhile, back at the ship, Adriana meets with Vicente and informs him that Ian is now very easy to find, meaning the perceiver can easily locate him too. Adriana explains to Vicente that Ian is their only hope of defeating the mule. Not everyone believes the mule is real, and Vicente is one of them. However, Vicente tells Adriana that he prefers to be on no man's land, with the agency on one side and the awareness on the other. Then Adriana advises him to stop drinking and be a real father for once. Meanwhile, Ian continues to find clues and soon loses track of Esther. Soon, he sees Esther standing beside the perceiver. Ian asks her what she is doing, but she says she's only trying to help him and beg him to listen to what the perceiver has to say. Ian warns the perceiver to stay where he is, but he doesn't listen and walks towards Ian. Ian begins to shoot at him, but it appears it is just an illusion. The perceiver soon finds the real Ian hiding in a room. Ian runs out of the room and creates 5 replicas of himself pointing a gun at the perceiver. However, the perceiver uses a nod to ask Esther for his real location, and he soon walks up to Ian and puts a gun to his head. The perceiver soon drops the gun, and in a shocking turn of events, tells Ian that he is his real father. Later, he begins to lecture Ian on how the perceivers were created in a secret program after World War II. After the Cold War, the agency didn't have any use for them and decided to eliminate them one after the other until the Mule came and counterattacked using a newly discovered ability known as the Third Power. Meanwhile, agents from the agency begin to troop into the building. The perceiver senses their presence, and he asks Ian and Esther to go up to the roof, promising to cover for them. As soon as the agents walk in, the perceiver begins to eliminate them. Later, the perceiver creates an illusion showing spiders walking all over the agents, but the agency soon captured the perceiver using their shield. Ian and Esther get to the roof and Esther jumps from the top of the building. However, Ian can't jump, so he decides to use another route and they both escape. Back at the agency lab, they use a robot to extract blood samples from the perceiver. Adriana tells the perceiver that once she gets the formula, she'll strip him of his powers and clarify if the mule is a myth or legend. They begin the test, and the perceiver begins to vibrate like he is dying. Adriana's boss shows up and commands her to stop it so as not to kill him. Adriana is later informed that the formula in the perceiver's body is too dilute to be synthesized. She goes into her office and begins to tremble, realizing that the formula must have died with Kaminsky, leaving Ian as their last hope. Meanwhile, the perceiver begins to demand water, stating that he is thirsty, so they use their robot to drill a hole for him to drink. However, this small hole grants him access to use the Third Power to bend the minds of the person controlling the robot. Using the robot's weapon, he kills them all, which proves that he's the mule. Later, Ian and Esther arrive at a place where the perceiver introduces Ian to his mother. Ian sees his mother in a bad state and breaks down. To our surprise, the perceiver arrives, and Ian decides to look into her mother's memory. The perceiver begins to tell him how bad the agency is and how they had tortured his mother. Right there in the memory, Ian sees a formula that the perceiver can't get to. The perceiver tries to break in and begins to plead with Ian to give him the formula, but Ian states that his mother doesn't want anyone else to have it except him. However, the perceiver tries to break the barrier and it affects Ian's mother. Ian begs him to stop, but he continues until Ian gets out of her memory. He sings for her mother for a while, and she later dies. The agency soon step into the room and Ian angrily uses his Third Power against them. Ian steps outside and uses his power to make all the agents put their guns against themselves as Adriana begs him to stop. The perceiver begins to manipulate him to do it, but Adriana tells him that whatever he saw was the perceiver's projection. Soon, Vicente arrives and begs Ian to stop, but the perceiver throws his gun on the floor, asking Ian to make Vicente use it just like the others. However, Ian ignores him and continues to blame the agency for torturing his mother. Vicente and the perceiver continue to argue about who is the real father to gain Ian's attention, but the perceiver quickly bends Vicente's mind, making him kill himself. Ian counters and stops using his power, but not quick enough. He rushes to meet Vicente. Meanwhile, the perceiver takes Esther as a hostage. Vicente then asks Ian to go into his head to get all the answers he needs to know because Vicente is already dying. It was at this point that Ian realized that his mother had asked Vicente to take him away from the agency, and Vicente sacrificed his entire life just to take care of Ian. Ian asks Vicente to forgive him, and they both go through their memories together. Ian shortly mourns the death of Vicente and soon goes inside to confront the perceiver. Getting inside, Ian makes everyone pass out, but the perceiver soon begins to bend their mind to fight Ian. Ian managed to fight them off until one of them held him by the throat. Adriana arrives and kills him to free Ian. Ian points his gun at the perceiver, asking to let Esther go, but the perceiver threatens to kill Esther if Ian takes one step forward. Adriana sees this and finally explains to Ian that Esther is not real but just a projection all along. No one else can see her except Ian. The perceiver had created her as an illusion that existed in a loop. Ian flashes back in time and realizes that the perceiver had planted her in his memory when they first met at the arcade. Ian takes the shot which passes through Esther and strikes the perceiver down, proving that Esther is not real. Days later, Ian and Adriana meet at Vicente's burial spot. Adriana tries to convince Ian to join the agency, but he tells her that he'll remain in no man's land using Vicente's word. Ian prepares to leave, but soon overhears Adriana's boss talking about killing him if they can't successfully recruit him. But in reality, we see Adriana has only an illusion that existed in a loop that wasn't removed. And the movie ends here. What stood out for me in this movie is the highlights of the importance of self-discovery, and how understanding who you truly are can be a powerful and transformative experience. So guys, what are your thoughts on the conclusion of the movie? Feel free to leave a comment and share your answers. Don't forget to hit the like button, share this recap, and subscribe to stay updated for the next one. Until next time.